Hurricane season 2020 rages on. We have two new named tropical storms in the Atlantic. I'm Mike Nasa with the latest update on the tropics. Happy Labor Day to you. Hope your weekend is not as rainy as mine is up here in the Midwest. I wanted to show you the name list, and we are now breaking records that were set back 15 years ago when Tropical Storm Rita developed on September 17th, because we are 10 days before that, and we are now on Renee. So we have broken the named storm record for 2005. Now, the difference between this year and 2005 was at that point we had had 3 or 4 major hurricanes. This year we've only had one with Laura. Nevertheless, the next storm name is Sally, which we've never used before on this rotating name list. This name list was used in 84, 90, 96, 2002, 2008, 2014, and this year. And we've never had any of these names starting with Renee. So it's almost a certainty now that we're going to exhaust this name list, and I'll have to update this graphic with the Greek alphabet. That'll be fun. Here's the latest satellite imagery of the Atlantic. You can see our two storms. This is Tropical Storm Paulette, and then closer to Africa in the Cape Verde area is Tropical Storm Renee. And we do have some disturbed weather stretching from the Caribbean all the way off the East Coast. There is a little swirl in here, and this area is a potential for development as it moves west, but right now nothing much there. Let's start with Renee, since it's closest to land. Here's the latest on Tropical Storm Renee as of 8 p.m. Cabo Verde time. It was at 16.1 north, 22.3 west, winds of 40, 1001 millibar pressure. It's moving west-northwest at 12. We do have tropical storm warnings out here for the Cabo Verde Islands because Renee is expected to blow through them tonight and then continue on a track west-northwest, becoming a hurricane, and then eventually making a turn north. So hopefully Renee is not going to end up anywhere near the islands, the Bahamas, the East Coast, even Bermuda. We should try and get Renee up and out by the weekend. Nevertheless, it looks like it's going to become a hurricane, and if it does so, it'll become the 6th hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season. The watches and warnings, as I mentioned, for these islands here, those islands do have populations, and it is a risk of high seas, gusty winds, and nasty conditions. In fact, there's an island there that had a volcano collapse thousands and tens of thousands of years ago that created a mega tsunami on the coastline of Africa. Not a lot of people know that. Nevertheless, a lot of mountainous terrain and whatnot, and so we do have tropical storm conditions likely and expected over the Cabo Verde Islands tonight and early Tuesday. That's why we have the warning out there. And also, Renee is going to bring locally heavy rainfall to the islands through Tuesday morning. So again, once it gets on past, say, by Tuesday night, Wednesday, Renee is going to strengthen but move away from land there in the islands. Nevertheless, you can see the track here. It could rack up some accumulated energy for the hurricane season, especially if it becomes a hurricane. But as long as it stays past the islands, past the Azores, past Bermuda, hopefully Renee will stay over open water and not bother anybody. Paulette, also 40 miles an hour, a little bit weaker than Renee, 1005 millibars, moving northwest at 3 very slowly. We watched this tropical wave for days, and finally it organized this morning, and Paulette is expected to not become a hurricane and bend west and then eventually bump northwest over time. Again, it should remain away from the islands and Bermuda, at least in the next 5 days. You could see some of the computer models want to take it closer to Bermuda in the long range. They're a little more uncertain. With Renee, they know Renee is going to turn up and out. With Paulette, they kind of have Paulette pulling a little more west. But nevertheless, I think both of these systems probably are going to remain out at sea, which is great news after what we just dealt with Hurricane Laura, to say nothing of what happened in the Carolinas with Isaias and in Belize with Hurricane Nana. Here's the satellite imagery, and you can see our two storms. On the left here is Paulette, which is looking pretty good. A lot of deep convection. It looks like it's strengthening a little bit, has good curvature, and is moving very, very slowly. Renee doesn't have as deep of convection, but is stronger, and it has a good symmetry. So both of our tropical storms are organizing. So it looks like Renee here is going to be a hurricane. Paulette could become a hurricane, maybe even down the road, but right now it is forecast to just remain a tropical storm. Here are the spaghetti model plots. This is as of 12Z, and this goes through the next 10 days, so take it with a grain of salt. But this gives like darts. Imagine throwing darts. Where do they go? And you can see there's a lot of activity here off the coastline of Africa, because after Paulette and Rene, there's another tropical wave that's going to move off in the next couple of days that could be our next storm, Sally. And some of the computer models want to bring it a little bit closer and further west here. And remember, you're not out of the woods yet on the southeast coast. Don't think just because you're past August that you can't get something. I remember Hurricane George back in '98 roaring through the Caribbean, the Keys, the Gulf Coast. That was mid to late September. So anything's possible. You know, Hurricane Ivan hit the Gulf Coast September 16th. You know, the Great Miami Hurricane, Lake Okeechobee, those hit southeast Florida September 16th and 18th. So this is a very busy year, and don't be surprised if we still have U.S. impacts. The GFS model, which has kind of been shameful most of the year, you can see what it does here. We have a couple of systems. First of all, I'll start at the beginning. It takes our two tropical storms, Paulette and Rene, and it moves them on along, and you can see what happens over the days. Paulette weakens, Rene becomes a hurricane out there and turns out, and then Paulette over here regenerates near Bermuda into a hurricane, a strong hurricane. Look at that fat donut eye. And so Paulette, based on the GFS, could be a threat to Bermuda. Then we have another hurricane. This is Sally down here, and you can see what it does. It takes Sally up to the north as well. So it looks like we get three hurricanes, Rene out to sea, Paulette close to Bermuda and out to sea, and then Sally out to sea on the GFS. We also get a tropical storm buffeting North Carolina. That would be Teddy. But look at this tropical wave here. The GFS shows this on the 19th, and look what happens to it. It becomes a big, bad hurricane headed for the islands on September 23rd. And by the way, I believe by that time this would be Vicky. So the GFS, take it with a major grain of salt, but I wanted to show this to give you guys some idea that we may not be done yet. We might have these storms moving out, another one developing, but then we could have more headed for land. And so if you're in the islands or on the East Coast, keep a lookout, because we're already on Rene and we still have quite a lot of hurricane season to go. Okay? Here's the satellite off Africa. You can see Paulette over here, Rene's over here near the islands, and this wave here is the one that some of the computer models want to make Sally. And as a matter of fact, the National Hurricane Center is showing a 50% chance of development, and this one could move further west. We also have our system up here I mentioned. So it's busy in the tropics, so we're going to watch this very, very carefully, and we'll see what exactly happens. But that's the latest as of Labor Day on our two storms, Paulette and Rene. Rene's going to impact the Cabo Verde Islands, but both Paulette and Rene should stay out. The next storm or two off Africa could get further west. We'll keep an eye out. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics. I'll talk to you next time.